All right, thanks for joining me on this impromptu video. This is something that I've shared with friends, but I just wanted to make it more compact and fun. What you find at the beginning of the Bible is a hidden sentence, right? It's a message that's trying to be conveyed. It's very powerful. It can't be a coincidence, and it's fun to share. Very fun to share. I've never met anybody that knows this, and so it's unique, and it's fun to really see that spark of inquiry and being able to engage, right, with someone else in a conversation. Another reason why I'm sharing this is because we all go through hardship. We're all dealt a different hand in life, whether it's genetics or situation or whatever. This life is not fair, and a lot of people get hurt through life by others, obviously. I've had my share of trials this year, and just this hidden sentence that I'll just say right now in a moment, it really brings me peace when I sit and think about it, because it makes me recognize that God does have control if you allow him to have control. And so let's jump into it. What is this hidden sentence, right? Well, at the beginning of the Bible in Genesis, we have a genealogy, right, from Adam, and it goes 10 generations down to Noah. Okay, well, if you get the meaning of each word, right? So Adam, for example, in Hebrew means mankind. Okay, if you get the meaning of each word, it makes a sentence. Okay, or it's conveying an idea. What does it say? Okay, well, we know that it starts with man or mankind. It says, man has been appointed mortal possession. I'll explain that in a second. Let me just go through the sentence, and I'll explain why it's phrased that way. Man appointed mortal possession. The shining one of God, or the glory of God, will descend to advocate or to disciple. Okay, his death will bring the lowly, the despairing, peace or comfort. So, a lot of names and a lot of words, they have a lot of synonyms, right, that are attached to that. But it's really cool. There's a sentence that's right at the beginning of the Bible, in a book, Genesis, that was written BC, right, before Christ. And it seems to be very clearly pointing to Christ. And again, we can break that down as we go along. I guess I just want to make a comment on that. I was scrolling through Facebook yesterday, and a friend of mine, someone I like very much, posted something ridiculing Christ. He posted a picture. It was mimicking Christ on the cross, and it was in the context of the Olympics, and it was just something inappropriate, really. It was ridiculing Christ and Christianity. And I just thought it was, you have posts like this that ridicule Christ and have 20 likes, and then you have someone that posts something about Christ in a positive way, and it has 2 likes or 0 likes. And so, it's just the day that we live in, unfortunately, where people ridicule, really, I think, something that they don't quite understand. It's easy to ridicule Christ because of Christians, right? Because there are so many people that misrepresent Christ. But you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You cannot, here you have an example of someone in history that only has your best interest, that never condemns anyone, and we resort to ridiculing him. I just think, be careful with what you're doing. That's just a word of advice. Be careful what you ridicule. And this even comes with people, right? We so easily might ridicule another person, but we don't know their story. We don't know what they've inherited, as I mentioned, whether it's genetically or stressors in life, etc. We're so quick to judge people. And it's easy for us to say, yeah, don't judge. Well, we do the same thing with Christ. We judge Christ through the bad actions of others. And through our misconceptions, our preconceived ideas, through our own hurt. Anyway, I don't have to lecture. So what is this sentence? Man appointed mortal possession, right? The shining one or the glory of God will descend to advocate for. To advocate for. He's advocating for you. He's not here to hurt you. His death will bring the despairing or the humble peace, okay, or comfort. Okay. We'll break it down and we'll call it a video. Okay. Adam, the first sentence, man appointed mortal possessions. Adam, Seth, okay, Enosh, Kenan. Adam, we know means man because he was the first man. Adam and Eve, they have Cain and Abel. Cain kills Abel. Abel goes off his own way. He departs from God. And then Seth is born. Seth means appointed in Hebrew because he was appointed to carry on the spiritual line, the priestly line. And before Exodus, before the Levitical priesthood, the man of the house, the husband, the house band, right? That's what the word means, is to hold the family together. His job was to be the one that provides love and comfort, and he has a responsibility. So Seth has this responsibility, and he's appointed to carry this responsibility, whereas Cain elected not to. Okay, so Adam, Seth, man appointed. And then Seth has Enosh or Enos, okay, depending on the translation. Enosh means frailty of flesh or mortality. Why? Well, because Adam and Seth, with the consequences of sin, right? With sin came death. And now Adam and Seth are starting to see the results, the repercussions of sin. That, I'm not as pretty as I used to be. I'm aging. People are dying, etc. And so Enosh is named the frailty of flesh or mortality. Okay? That death comes. Death comes to us all. Okay, so man appointed mortal or frail flesh. And then Enosh has Kenan or Canaan. This is not to be confused with the land of Canaan or Ham's son Canaan. It's a different word, completely different word in Hebrew. But Canaan or Kenan, the son of Enosh, means to acquire or to possess something that you receive. And so that's the first part of the sentence. Man appointed mortal possession or acquired frailty of flesh. I think the reason why the structure seems a little off is because Hebrew, just like Spanish compared to English, sometimes the words are in are arranged differently. And that's a simple concept to understand. So, first part of the sentence. Then we have Mahalalel. So the son of Kenan or Canaan was Mahalalel. Any name, in Hebrew at least, that ends in El is in context of God, right? El is short for Elohim. That's a whole big subject. Words mean a lot, and we could talk about it a lot. But Mahalalel means, if you look it up and look these words up on a search engine online, it means the glory of God, or it means the shining one of God. Again, there's different meanings that kind of go along the same line. Well, we know that the scriptures refer to Christ as the glory of God. He's also referred to as the light of God in the context of the shining one of God. The shining one of God will descend to advocate or to disciple, right? Mahalalel, okay? Oh, I didn't finish. Again, just for your own knowledge, anything ending in L is in the context of God. So Daniel, okay, judged by God. Ezekiel, okay, strength of God. Nathaniel, Samuel, okay, you get the idea. And it could also be at the beginning. Elizabeth, right, promise, God's promise. Elijah, Elohim, Yahweh, okay, or Jehovah, which is the Latinized way of saying Yahweh or Yahweh. People pronounce it differently, but it comes from the same word. And so, it's Jehovah is my God, is Elijah. So words have meaning. Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch. The glory of God, or the shining one of God, will descend, come down to advocate for. Jared means to descend. Enoch means, it's one of those words that have, if you look it up, it has a big scope of, to advocate for, to disciple, to discipline, to teach, to train, okay, etc. Those are what you will find the most if you look this up yourself. I think an interesting comment here. Remember that Seth was appointed to carry on the spiritual line, whereas Cain, didn't. He went off his own way. He did not follow God's way. Well, you see something here, which I think is quite interesting. The number 7 in the Bible is the most used number, and it's a number that symbolizes perfection or completion. And I think it's not a coincidence, again, that Enoch is the 7th generation from Adam. And Enoch, some of us might know, he walked with God and was no more, the Bible says. That he had such a close relationship that God took him and he did not experience death. He went to heaven. Okay. And so, interesting, right? So you have that happen at the 7th generation. But if you go through the line of Cain, those that do not follow God's ways, the 7th generation, through the line of Cain from Adam, is Lamech, which is the first person to take on multiple wives, was known for murdering a man. Remember, after Cain, there was a curse pronounced on anyone that would continue to kill his brethren. Anyway, it's just, you see these completely different results from from what happened, from families, right? Because we acquire we receive things from our families, from generation to generation, whether it's habits. We receive both nature and nurture. I receive things genetically, and then there are learned behaviors. So anyway, that's another subject. So Enoch was the 7th. Enoch has a son. His son's Methuselah. A lot of us might recognize this name. I'll get to in a second. But Methuselah has come to mean his death will bring. Okay. Why do I say has come to mean? Well, if you look it up in Jewish tradition, okay, it might mean something different in Hebrew as a word, but historically, the name Methuselah became his death will bring because Enoch had a close relationship with God. And as it says in Amos, that God reveals everything, right, to his friends or to his prophets. And Enoch is identified as a prophet, at least in the book of Jude. And so Enoch, God reveals to Enoch that a flood would come. That God's like, I have to tell you this. You're my friend. I'm going to have to start over. There's something that's coming up that I don't want to do. And of course, Enoch in distress, he's like, Lord, when will this come? And God's response to Enoch, remember, because Enoch doesn't experience this because he lived, 1,000 years before the flood and he was translated. And so God says to Enoch, your son, his death will bring the flood. Okay. So Methuselah has come to mean his death will bring because Methuselah died a month before the flood, according to Jewish tradition. You can see that mathematically when you just add it up in the book of Genesis, that his death comes at the same time as the flood. But I think in Jewish tradition, it specifies more that it was a month before the flood, giving Noah time for, burying his grandfather and the mourning process, etc. And so, Methuselah, being the longest man that ever lived, did I say that? Methuselah is known to have the highest life expectancy ever given to a man. He lived for 969 years. If anyone has confusion about, how that's possible, I'd love to talk about it because I think I have an explanation a scientific explanation that's very satisfying. So Enoch lived longer than anyone ever. And to me, that this is evidence of God's mercy. Because if God knows that Methuselah's death would bring a flood, then he wants Methuselah to live as long as possible because of his long suffering. He wants as many people to listen to the message of salvation as possible, right? And so you have this, every every age has skeptics. And an example that we're given in the scriptures, when Elijah ascended to heaven, he's the only other person apart from Enoch that ascended to heaven without death, without tasting death. Elijah ascends to heaven, and people go around looking for his body because they can't believe what Elisha is telling them, that he ascended, that Elijah ascended to heaven. Hope I'm not losing you on the names. And you have the same thing with Enoch. Okay, according to tradition, you have people that were looking for Enoch and couldn't find him. But they knew that his son, Methuselah, that his death would bring something. And so it was a harbinger, it was whatever you want to call it. It was something that people paid attention to, is Methuselah's life. And then Noah comes, right? And he says, he gives the warning that in 120 years a flood would come. And so putting that together along with the life of Methuselah, interesting. But so Methuselah, his son is Lamech, which I already, Lamech meaning despair or lowly, as in the humble. And then Noah means peace or comfort or rest. Right? So his death will bring the despairing or the lowly, the humble, peace or rest or comfort. Okay. So super powerful sentence if you really digest what is being said. Man acquired or has been appointed mortality, right? Because before that, Adam wasn't supposed to die. Man was not supposed to die. The glory of God, which is Christ, the shining one of God, will descend to advocate for or to disciple, to teach us his ways. His death will bring the lowly, the humble, peace, comfort. Okay, it brings me comfort. And I think it's, again, a very powerful message. We, through the death of Christ, we receive his life. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 45, it says that the first Adam was made a living soul, but the last Adam, which is Christ, the last Adam, was made a life-giving spirit. Okay. Through Adam, we received death, and it's through Christ that we receive life, his life. And so when someone has the Spirit of Christ, when they're a born-again Christian, when they receive the new covenant, which is the life of Christ, they will live the life of Christ. And again, you cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater. I know there's a lot of Christians that do not exemplify this. We watch YouTube videos of people on the street corner preaching and condemning others. Okay, I'm not, trying to defend anyone that's doing these things. What I'm saying is remove these people. Look at Christ. That's what the Bible says, to look at him, know him. Jesus says, this is life eternal, to know my Father and me. Okay, that's John chapter 17, verse 3. But life eternal is knowing God and his Son. And a lot of people don't know exactly what that means because there's so much confusion, right? We have more to unlearn than to learn. We have so many preconceived ideas. But we need to break it down very simple. God has a Son, made in his image, perfect, divine as him. And life is knowing this relationship, okay? Life is knowing a relationship. And so, we can elaborate, and I'm just trying to make something very simple, okay? Is knowing Christ through his, knowing the Father, knowing God through his Son. According to the Bible, that's what life is. And so, Jesus said, I did not come to condemn, but to save the world. And we could take that example. So I hope you learned something from this, and going to bed. Okay. Have a good night. Thanks for listening. Bye.